Hello everybody and welcome to another tier list. Today we are going to be looking at all of the enemies in Super Mario Maker 2 because I hear they added some new ones today. If this video is coming out the day that I want it to. But hopefully it is. Hopefully I'm on top of that. But actually though, this is going to be a really hard tier list to do because what makes a good enemy in Mario Maker 2? Because I think you could have good uses of any one of these enemies in a level. But I also think you could be Satan with any one of these enemies. So, just to be clear, this entire list is like super opinionated. There might be some biases on my part because maybe I played a really particularly bad level that used one of these enemies as a mechanic. I'm looking at you, Hammer Bro. But, yeah, we're gonna try to be as impartial as possible, but this is all just for fun. It's all just opinions. And also, Hammer Bro, if you're watching this, you can eat my ass. Full buffet for you, baby. I would never be biased. Not even once in a video. Okay, first things first, it's the realist. It's Goomba. And I feel like, okay, Goombas, they're the very first enemy in all of Mario. They are like the default. Every other Mario enemy is basically a Goomba that also does something extra. But like, Goomba is the very basics of what every Mario enemy is mostly built off of. So like, that kind of has me like angling for the middle. But I think because of how iconic Goomba is, because he's so closely associated with the Mario series, like everyone knows what a Goomba is, even if you're not a hardcore Mario gamer or anything like that. So honestly, because of the iconic nature and just like defining basic video game grunts, I think Goomba, he's gonna get an A. Just a nice, solid A for hard work and commitment to being a video game minion. Next up is Blooper. I don't think there's anything necessarily bad with bloopers themselves. Like, if they're used properly, if they're used sparingly, they're a nice little extra thing to have to watch out for in the underwater sections, because they kind of lazily home in on Mario. Like, they don't go, like, directly for him super fast, just like, I'm gonna drunkenly meander over in your general direction. The problem is, if you have 100 people drunkenly meandering at you, that is a mob. That is a drunken mob. You don't want to be run over by one of those. So I feel like very similarly to how I was like, Goomba might be a B, but like, there's enough like good aspects that he might get elevated to an A. I feel like Blooper is a pretty solid, like, good use enemy that actually, you know what? Just because of like how nice they can be as an additional challenge underwater if they're used properly. Like, I would have said that that's an A, but because of the fact that these guys are really easy to abuse, I feel like that's got to lower some points down into B for Bloop. Should I just leave it Bloop on the thing the entire rest of the video? So this guy, is it worth the effort to make a whole bunch of new tiers just so we can get to tier Z? And yes, now people are going to call me out for being Canadian. The real Sun I love because, you know, we kind of need that to live, but this Sun, no. Goodbye, Sun. You're getting the D. The Sun can suck my D, no matter how many third-degree burns that causes. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, like, I think, honestly, Bob-ombs, I think they are definitely in S tier, especially in Mario Maker, because there is just so much stuff you can do with Bob-ombs in your level that I think putting them at anything other than S tier would be a disservice. They're an interesting enemy. You can have them come out of pipes. They can be like dangerous to Mario themselves, especially if you have like a bunch of them coming out, and they can have like random explosions wherever they're walking to. But then also, once you actually like jump on them, and can pick them up, there's like so much utility for them. And I think that's one of the great things about Mario Maker is there's so many possibilities and so many things you can do that Nintendo wouldn't normally do in one of the mainstream Mario games. So I think that level creation software like Mario Maker is where enemies like Bob-ombs truly shine, because there's just so much you can do with them. So yeah, S tier for super sexy. Is this about Mario Maker or just in general? So I'm mostly trying to approach like how I'm ranking these as to how these enemies can and are used in Mario Maker. I might bring in a little bit of their usage in other games if there is some particularly noteworthy stuff, but mostly I am trying to rank these from the perspective of Super Mario Maker 2. When possible. And speaking of really good enemies, I think that Boo's also gonna rank highly up here. Because Boo has like one mechanic, but it's, pardon me for reusing the catchphrase, but I think that mechanic's really freaking clever. Like the looking at Boo's, not looking at Boo's, like that's a cool, it's a really basic mechanic, but it's something that there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. You can have Boo's be an obstacle while people are trying to do other things and have them have to keep in mind what direction they're facing. You can just have them as a nuisance during other parts of the level. So it's a really basic mechanic, but there's a heck of a lot you can do with it. So I'm going to have to say we're going with A. That Boo has a nice A. Okay, so I'm supposed to rank the Beetle next, but I feel like before we talk about the Beetle, we do need to talk about Koopa Troopa. Because this, again, might be an S tier. So for most of this video, we are exclusively talking about like how these enemies are used and can be used in Super Mario Maker 2. But I think I need to give the Koopa Troopa a little bit of extra points for also, just the same as the Goomba, being there from the beginning, but having a really strong mechanic from the beginning as well. The Koopa Troopas, you don't just jump on them and they're done with. You jump on them and you still have something else to deal with, the shell. And as the Mario series has progressed, they've made that more complicated in that in some games it like knocks the actual Koopa out of the shell and then you have two separate things to kind of deal with. Eventually the Mario series added the ability to pick up shells, and Mario Maker makes use of these features a lot. Like shell jumps, picking up shells for puzzles. Like I don't think there is someone more deserving of an S tier on this list more than Koopa Troopa. Like I would say it even probably more deserves the S tier than even Bob-omb. So S tier is basically being reserved for the enemies that you can do a lot with, and that is also why Buzzy Beetle will also be going up here. Buzzy Beetles are very similar to the Koopa Troopas, but they're not affected by the Fire Flower, and if you put wings on them, the flying Buzzy Beetles have a completely different effect. And just for those differences and giving you a little bit more variety to work with, I'll put them up in the S tier with the Koopa Troopas as well, since they're so similar, but it does just enough to differentiate them. And as my chat just pointed out to me, the Beetles can also be used as helmets, which, like, that's cool, because I like fancy headwear. Obviously. Okay, so I'm a little bit sad that this tier list, like, can only have, like, square icons, and it just auto-cropped off, like, half of Chain Chomp's face, because I'm also not sure if he's gonna get a good tier placement. So now I'm like, am I just double ripping him off? I'm sorry, any Chain Chomps watching this video. But yeah, Chain Chomp, classic Mario enemy, always had really interesting appearances in the series. But again, it kind of has that blooper problem of it's really, really easy to spam a lot of these and make it very difficult for the player to be able to deal with it. Like, at least if you spam a lot of, like, Goombas or Koopa Troopas or something, like, a player can just, like, kind of bounce off of those and avoid the clustered frick, for a lack of a better term. But with Chain Chomps, if there's a lot of them, you're just kind of, you're out of luck. So I think, for that reason, I gotta give a solid C to Chain Chomps. You know what? Because of the barking, we're gonna put it up to B. The barkin' bloops. Okay, Cheep Cheeps. Now, I'm having an issue where technically a lot of the stuff I said for the Goomba also kind of applies to the Cheep Cheep. Been here from the beginning, very classic, very basic, but I feel like the Cheep Cheep also has just enough annoying tendencies that it's like the bad version of the Goomba. Because if people spam them a lot underwater, they are a lot more difficult to deal with than the Goombas. They can be real annoying when people have them like just hopping out the bottom of the stage and spam those. They can have some good uses, and like because they are like so iconic to Mario, they do get a few legs up because of that. But I think the Cheep Cheep is gonna have to be our first seed. All right. Now I've already said Bob-omb, Koopa Troopa, Buzzy Beetle. They're pretty solid, definitive S tiers. But just for the record, so is this. The Koopa car in Mario Maker, being able to actually pilot that after having just only Bowser appear in it for so long, and having so many uses for it, and that's so many different enemies, like items, can all be put in the clown car with like different effects. Like, holy crap, the clown car is one of the funnest things to work with in Mario Maker. It is also definitely an S because of how many uses it has and just how good it feels to be able to use something that used to be so iconic just towards Bowser and finally be able to use it as Mario. Also, the shoot 'em up levels are just amazing. Give me all the shoot 'em up levels. Kaizo? Who needs that? Give me the shoot 'em ups. Okay, dry bone. That's immediately just low as you can go. Oh, it's the Mario enemy. Oh, it's not the concept of having a dry bone. Oh. Okay, but legitimately though, I think that Dry Bones is probably a pretty solid, I would say B. And I guess I've been putting like Blooper and Chain Chomp in B as like, I put them in B and made it sound as if that was a negative thing, but B is not a bad spot to be. And I think, haha, I just realized the pun there. But I think that Dry Bones is like a higher tier B. They have some interesting mechanics that you need to keep track of, like the fact that when you kill them, they come back to life unless you like really kill them. So just that little twist alone is enough to like stop them from being too down on the list. So I would say, yeah, Dry Bones, a pretty solid B for that bone. But Dry Bones fish, like, I don't want to seem like I'm bigoted against the ocean or the sea, as you might put it. But, yeah, I think that might just be a C. I don't even know if I have like an explanation. I just feel in my heart of heart, in the heart of the cards, that the dry fish is a C. Okay, so like now I'm like upset I didn't make the Z tier earlier because I need something to put the Hammer Bros below. So, like, we need to invent a whole 27th letter if we really want to do the Hammer Bros justice. But actually, though, like, Hammer Brothers, they're an interesting enemy. They're very difficult. I feel like you can do a decent amount with them. It's just, again, the ability to have them be spammed, like, so much and have them be so difficult to get through. I feel like Hammer Brothers might need to be a C as well. They do have some perks because they can be used in really interesting ways, and I think they have a little bit more to them than the Sun does, but overall, I think the Hammer Bros get misused a lot in Mario Maker 2, so I'm gonna have to put them in the C tier. Alright. Our good friend Magikoopa. So I think Magikoopa is probably an A. They have just enough unique mechanics to put them out of being, like, right in the middle. The fact that they can change blocks into random things, the fact that you can do a lot with the fact that what they change the blocks into is random, like those 1 in 6 million chance levels and stuff like that. Like, those levels aren't fun to play, but it's still really interesting that Mario Maker can do that. So for adding that RNG aspect, I think that's really cool that the Magic Koopa does that. I also like that they can steal the goalposts at the end. Like, that's a really good, like, troll mechanic, if troll levels are your thing. So I think you can spam these and make them a little bit obnoxious, but I think overall the pros of what you can do with the Magic Koopas outweighs the cons, so I'm gonna have to put it in A. And you know what? Lakitu might have to be an A as well. Like, it all depends on what he's throwing. Like, it's again a thing where it's really up to the players, but I have seen a lot of really good uses of Lakitu. He can be used to throw beneficial stuff to you. The cloud is obviously like a huge mechanic that is really fun to utilize. It is super easy to spam Lakitus and have them throw a lot of obnoxious things. But I think overall that Lakitu has enough stuff to, again, be worth the extra push out of the middle of the pack into the A tier. Alrighty, this one might be a little bit controversial, but I feel like, from my experience with Mario Maker 2, I think the fireballs, what are they called? Potaboos or something? Someone correct me on the actual, like, name of these guys. But I think this might have to be another D. In normal Mario games, this would be like one of the most average enemies possible. Like, probably a B. But I feel like the lava bubbles that pop out of the ground, or that pop out of the lava, I feel like those get abused way too much in, like, trolley levels. People putting them in blocks so they kill you. People having the timing between, like, waves of these being really awkward. It's just something that in actual Mario games isn't that much of a hindrance, but then whenever you have just random level creators trying to put these into levels, you see just how, like, dangerous and, like, annoying these things can be. So for that reason, and because Blarg is not on this list for some reason, I'm just putting all of the enemies that, like, exclusively pop out of the lava, they're in the D tier. I'm sorry. I might again be biased because of a few specific levels, but yeah, I gotta follow my heart, and my heart is craving the D for that one. I mean, like, you know how I just said that, like, in an actual Mario game, that, like, that the lava bubble would be a B? Just because, like, there's not a whole lot noteworthy about it? I feel like you can't really screw up Monty Mole. I feel like Monty Mole might just be the most average thing on this entire ranking, because just, you can't really mess it up. Like, he pops out of the ground, you jump on him. And, like, even if you spam it, like, you get a warning that a bunch of them are about to pop out. So it's just like, yeah, it's an enemy. It's an enemy that you can fight, or avoid, or whatever. So let's just put it in B. Put it in bloop. Okay, so Munchers, oh god. I feel like Munchers are another one of those enemies that if I was just going off my gut instinct would be in D. I've had so many dickish time trial speedrun levels where the Munchers are what gets you if you don't do it fast enough. So, like, because of that, I don't have the fondest opinion of Munchers, but I suppose it's not their fault for being, like, a default, like, damage-dealing thing, and I have seen a lot of interesting uses of them. So I feel like Munchers are probably, I might say, a solid B again. They can be used for good, they can be used for evil. They're basically just, here is the damage part of the level. So, similar to Monty Mole, it's just the enemy going in B. Yeah, because there's a lot of ways to, like, deal with Munchers, and, like, a lot of levels are built around, like, navigating Munchers, I can't put them too low for that. So, yeah, they're a solid B. Piranha Plant. Okay. I feel like Piranha Plants, I feel, okay, they are another one of the, like, this is just a classic Mario enemy. It's kind of hard to super misuse them, but I feel like they have enough interesting aspects like being able to shoot fire or just popping out to say hello and munch and stuff like that. And you can do enough interesting things around them. I think Piranha Plants are gonna have to go in A. Again, the image cropping on this list isn't the best because this just looks like a pipe with a plant coming out of it. But yeah, I'm gonna put my homegrown marijuana in tier number A. So what if we took Monty Moles, but we made them a bastard? That would give us the Wrench Monty Moles, and they go in C. Because they're a bastard. I don't really have anything else to add to those guys. They're just not that fun to go up against. And I feel like they can be spammed a lot more easily than the normal Monty Moles. So yeah, because of that, they gotta get sat on by the regular Monty Moles. Okay, so these guys, I feel like they gotta go in the same... Yeah, I feel like they gotta go in the same category as Munchers. They're basically another easy to kind of deal with, damage dealing, like, obstacle to avoid. You can have some spam of these, so they, like, keep rotating one platform and make, like, a really big damage area. But the fact you can spin, jump off of these in most game modes, that helps a lot with how you deal with them. So I feel like, again, like, these are a pretty solid B we've got going on here. Meanwhile, the slightly better version of them, even if they can't rotate around platforms, these things become an even better hat than the Buzzy Beetles, but they can be really annoying when wielded by Lakitu. So for those two reasons, I think that they're not as good as the Buzzy Beetles, but they're better than these spiky guys. So the Spiny Beetles are going to be a solid A tier from me. They're just going to slide right in there. Okay, Thwomps. Now Thwomps are a really, really interesting Mario enemy. I feel like Thwomps could be argued to be S tier. They have a nice mechanic. It's very easy to understand what's going on, and there's a lot of uses between, like, being able to sometimes bounce off them in some game modes, having puzzles where they have to hit switches. There is a lot of uses for these guys. But they are also abused so terribly in troll levels and people that just don't know how to properly telegraph where their thwomps are going. And so because of... they do so much good, but because people also occasionally use them for so much evil, they gotta get downgraded a teeny bit. And again, go to A tier. So the last vanilla enemy to talk about in Mario Maker 2 is the Wiggler. And I feel like the Wiggler is probably going to be a C. I feel like they're an enemy that has an interesting mechanic. It's not game-changing, the fact that you jump on them and that makes them angry. Like, I don't know if there's quite enough uses for that other than making, like, that one platform more difficult to jump on again. But I don't think their mechanic is quite as open-ended as some of the other higher-tiered enemies are, but it is a cool mechanic nonetheless. But you can quickly kind of get into... this is an enemy that's easy to spam. If you have a lot of them running back and forth, you can't really get rid of them if they're all angry. And so it's really easy to make just a real, like, mess of a level using these. So I feel like I'm gonna have to put them in C, but it's like, it's a higher ranking C. If I was doing the letters like C+ and stuff like that, Wiggler would probably be a C+. And then, so they're not actually on this tier list because they just got announced like a couple days ago, but there's two new enemies coming in the latest update to Super Mario Maker 2, which should have come out on the day that this video is going up, and those are Spike and Pokies. So, from what we have seen in the trailers, and I'm just gonna ask, future Josh, could you like edit in a PNG of these enemies and just like drop it onto the tier list, and we'll pretend that they were included in the software right off the bat? I'm gonna have to say that Spike looks like he could be an S tier enemy. The fact that they have added that Spike can throw snowballs instead of just the spike balls, that's such a cool feature to add and adds a lot of usage to snow levels. But even without that, the fact that the spike balls have physics interactions with like the weighted scales and different things like that can be used to take out other enemies. The fact that they've really expanded on what for lack of a better term, Spike's balls do compared to other Mario games, I think that's really, really cool, and I think Spike is definitely deserving of that S tier spot, even if I haven't myself actually gotten to play him yet. If I find a lot of dickish levels with Spike after I've played a few, maybe we'll come back and we'll revoke his license. But for now, I think Spike has a lot of potential to, I think Spike deserves an S tier. And last, but certainly not least, I think that I'm going to have to say that Pokey looks like he's going to be an A tier. Again, it looks like there's going to be enough usage of the unique mechanics of the fact that, like, you can get rid of, like, some of Pokey's body using Yoshi or other things such as shells. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go about that. I think there'll be a lot of cool levels of finding out a way to get past the Pokey, because someone can block off an area with how tall they are. So I think that Pokey looks like an enemy that has a lot of potential. Not quite as much as Spike seemed to be showing off in that trailer, but I'm very, very interested to check out this update and see what Pokey can do. And who knows, maybe Pokey will get a promotion. Maybe Spike will suck and Pokey will take his job. Maybe Spike will get really angry at that, and then they'll both be trying to stab each other, and then they'll realize that the real Spike was the friends they made along the way. So there you have it. That is my Mario Maker 2 tier list. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments, because, like, commenting is good, but do it nicely, because being nice is also good. So do it good. Like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button. And also, you know, don't make bad Mario Maker levels with thwomps, because, like, seriously, way too many of those, fam.